Hi, I'm Marjorie Drucker from New England Soup Factory. They call me the Soup Lady. Today we're doing something really special. We are making a classic tomato soup, pure Americana comfort food. There's nothing quite like that deep, rich bowl of tomato soup, and we're not going to adorn it with unusual ingredients. It's going to be ingredients that everybody has in their house. We're starting with 4 ounces of butter. And the reason why we're using butter instead of olive oil is because when making tomato soup, it's all about balancing the flavors, working to bring out the acid and balancing the acid and bringing the fruity flavor of the tomatoes together. So this is kind of like a little science experiment. There's a million different ways to make tomato soup. And this is, I think, the king of tomato soups. So while our butter melts, we're going to add a classic mirepoix, which is just carrots, onions, and celery. And you don't have to you don't have to slice them fancy. You can just rough chop them because eventually they're going to get soft and they're going to go through a blender. So it doesn't even matter how you chop them. We're also going to add celery, and again, it doesn't matter how you chop it. You can just rough chop it, even if you get some of the celery leaves in it, even better, so you really get to use everything you have. At this point, I'll add the garlic. I didn't add the garlic first because I don't want it to burn. It needs some other vegetables to mingle with, kind of protect it. And this is a secret ingredient. I like to add fresh fennel. It has the texture of celery, but it has a much more assertive taste, kind of licoricey, but it won't take licoricey when we cook the soup. It will really mellow it out. So this is wonderful eaten raw, but I use it a lot in my soup making. So I'm just cutting it up. Cut it into some dices. Again, not fancy. We're taking it, adding it straight to our pot. Now, last but not least, how do you like them carrots? Is that incredible? This is what was delivered to me by my produce man. So I don't expect you to get carrots like this, but I have carrots like this. The recipe calls for 2 carrots. This is about 4 carrots. So I'm just going to take maybe a quarter of it. This is the kind of carrot you'd feed a horse. So we're just going to take these, cut them up a little bit smaller. So this way the soup will cook more quickly and we're not waiting for big chunks of vegetables to cook. Whoops, losing my carrots here. So now we have our classic mirepoix. We have butter, carrots, celery, onions, fennel, garlic. And we are going to cook these vegetables for about 7 to 10 minutes. Let them linger in the butter, soften, get a little caramely, and delicious. Okay, so our vegetables have been in a little sauna in this pot, and so they're a little bit soft and tender, a little bit more pliable. At this point, we're going to add our tomatoes. Now, you can use whatever brand of tomatoes you like, but I have found, because I tested this recipe many times to get the perfect taste, to use these tomatoes. They're called San Marzano, and they come from Italy, and they have a really clear, clean taste, and you will love the flavor. Now, I will be honest, this is kind of a messy job. It's tomatoes we're working with. It's a dirty job, but somebody's got to do it. The tomatoes are in with our vegetables. Now it's time for stock. You can use vegetable stock or you can use chicken stock. I like to use vegetable stock because it will make it more accessible to more people. While it won't be vegan, it will be vegetarian. So at this point, 4 cups of vegetable stock. Now, tomatoes are good and rich and deep, but these tomatoes, which are sun-dried tomatoes, These are a compound of tomato flavor, so to really amp up that tomato flavor, I'm adding about 12 sun-dried tomatoes. You won't have to rehydrate them because they will rehydrate naturally in the soup. So that's one less step you have to take. Now we're going to add 2 tablespoons of tomato paste. I like using these little tubes because I can use as much or as little as I need, and then I don't have to throw any out if I'm not using it all. Now, another secret ingredient is some sugar. We're going to add a little bit of sugar into the soup because the tomatoes have a lot of acid and we want to offset the acidic taste. So a little bit of sugar. The sugar and the butter are going to balance the acidic quality of these tomatoes. I'm just going to add a little bit of kosher salt and black pepper. Now please make sure when you add your chicken stock or you add your vegetable stock, it needs to be seasoned. It needs to taste like it has some salt and flavor in there. Otherwise you'll have kind of a dull tasting soup. Our ingredients are in the pot. We're going to bring it to a boil. We'll cook it quickly, maybe 35 minutes, just until all the vegetables are tender, and then we'll get ready to puree it. So it really took no time at all to get these tomatoes and vegetables and stock cooking. It really only took maybe 20 or 30 minutes. What I've done is I have ladled in with a small pot into my blender the soup that we're going to puree. Now, it's very important that when you use a blender that you always take out this middle piece because when you blend hot liquid, it can explode on you. And while I love hand blenders, this soup, the beauty of this soup is the texture. It is so ultra fine that a hand blender isn't going to get it as fine as we need it. I'm going to start this and get it blending. I'm loosely putting a towel over this blender so nothing spurts out. I'll just remove the cover. And at this point, I'll take it off, and I have another pot fitted with a fine mesh strainer. I'm going to strain the soup right into this pot. And what this will do is it will capture any skins that might be left over in the tomatoes, any parts of the carrots that maybe are still a little too thick, because as I said, we want the soup to be perfectly smooth, perfectly fine. I'll whisk it a little, kind of press it through the strainer. So now we're at the point, this is the last batch that we're ready to puree, and we're going to temper the cream. What does that mean? It means that you take cold cream that's not, this is very hot, this is very cold. You have to be careful when you mix them together, so you call this tempering. So we're going to take a little bit of this cream. You can use light or heavy. Heavy does taste a little bit richer, but you can certainly use light. I wouldn't use anything less than that. I'm going to blend this up. At this point, I'm going to again put it right through the strainer. And now, if I add the rest of this cream, it's already tempered, so it's not going to shock the hot liquid. We've cooled down the soup slightly by adding this cream. So at this point, we're again passing it through this fine mesh, and this is going to create our silky consistency. So we have our last of our cream and our soup. We're just again pressing it through, getting all of the deliciousness. Even as you press it, you're pressing out flavor. And you can see all this discarded stuff. We don't want to add this to the soup at all. I'm going to discard this, and then I'm going to get ready to add our cornstarch and water, which is called our slurry. Okay, we're at the finishing stages, getting ready to see if we've done a good job, getting ready to thicken it slightly. Before I add our slurry and thicken it, I want to adjust the taste. So I'm going to take a taste of it. I'm going to add some kosher salt, some freshly ground black pepper, which I love. Another one of my staples, some Worcestershire sauce. Worcestershire sauce goes great with tomato soup. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, couple dashes. Stir this up. Now we're going to add our slurry, and this will increase the texture, make it silky, thick, and gorgeous. And in a few minutes, we're going to get ready to plate this baby. This is what you remember as a child, only better. It's got an updo, as they call it. So we're just going to add this tomato soup into our bowl. And of course, you make it for someone you love. We put our heart into this, and we're going to add a cute little grilled cheese to top it. A few yellow tomatoes. And there we have love in a bowl, classic tomato soup.